Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's start this whole new series here, once again based on your new suggestions. Although who knows, there may be some older ones that were placed there. Again, this one has to do with a fan favorite of sorts, once again delving into the world of Bigfoot. So a lot of fans out there that still see those videos, any videos that I do that involve anything involving Bigfoot or Bigfoot-like creatures. In this case, though, it's more of a twist. Instead of having it listed here in the US, this is more along the lines of a Bigfoot-like creature that's found in the United Kingdom and in other parts of Europe or England as well. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and we'll talk about this. Interesting name too. It's known as the Woodwose, and I'll present all the information possible. And who knows, those of you that live in those local areas, let me know what you guys and gals think. Maybe you might have some more experiences to share here. So here's essentially what the Woodwose is. Again, it's a Bigfoot-like creature that's specifically found in England and other parts of the United Kingdom. What's interesting too is the timeline associated with this creature. Apparently, it's been there in those parts of the world before the European colonization of America and then also afterward. So think of it this way. It's a Bigfoot-like creature that has been there for hundreds of years, even before America itself was colonized and founded and so on. And here you have a situation where even to this very day, this creature is still having modern sightings. But yes, when I say Bigfoot-like creature, I mean this. Let's talk about the physical characteristics associated with it. Basically, it's very similar to everything as far as the North American cousins. Here you have a situation where it's a creature that averages about 8 feet tall, although in some cases it's more of 6 or 7 feet tall. It has shaggy-like hair. The only distinction is that the hair seems to have wild differences. For example, when it comes to the colors. For example, some of them are either light brownish or orange, and in other cases they're reddish, more along the lines of like an orangutan, and yet in other cases it's more of either being brown or black. Who knows why there's so much differentiation between all these different colors? Maybe it has to do with camouflage. Maybe it's different clans associated with these Woodwose. But either way, that's the biggest way to help differentiate them whenever you see these creatures there. But similarly to Bigfoot, they have a very large shape, like in other words, they almost look like gorillas, like a mixture of gorillas with something on the lines of a human, and then they also have a very unique skull. So in this case, instead of gorillas, who are known to have that kind of cone-shaped, sloping-like forehead, here in this situation, the Woodwose has more of a human shape. So it looks far more human, in other words, than an average gorilla would. It has wide noses. It has a protruding brow as well. It has a mouth that's similar to a chimpanzee, also sticks out. And then finally, it has, again, its strength. Like, it's definitely large. It has a very massive set of muscles associated with it, the kind of thing you would imagine, again, more along the lines of a Bigfoot here in the U.S. Where you can find them, again, you'll have to go to the England and other parts of the United Kingdom, specifically to those areas that are considered small, dense, wooded areas, if you go over to the countryside in particular. So who knows, if you're there right now, if you're reading this information and you happen to be in the exact spots that I'm talking about, who knows, maybe there's a good chance you can go out there and then you might run into one of these Woodwose creatures as well. It's going to be kind of hard to do so because apparently ever since their earliest sightings up until now, those sightings have been dwindling. The number of these creatures is apparently down. Maybe they're almost to the point of being extinct, or at least very, very small when it comes to their population. So chances of you finding this creature are pretty rare, but who knows, you may still have that chance if you go on an active hunt. But still, stuff involving actual sightings, there's some notable ones that have occurred, and I'll chronicle a few here. In 1982, there's a Bigfoot researcher named Deborah Hatswell. She stated that back when she was 15 years old, again in 1982, there in Salford, Lancashire, England, she saw one of these Woodwose creatures. She said that she was at a park over in an urban area. She was there with a friend as well. They actually had decided to skip school that day, but they didn't weren't going to tell anybody else about this. But they went over to an overgrown area in that park that's called Bewley Park. And then lo and behold, once they were there playing around, that's when they noticed movement in the corner of their eye. And then she and her friend described a quote unquote monster, a man-ape, or a gorilla man that jumped right out of the bushes. Obviously, they were freaked out once they saw this very big, tall creature, and so they ran as fast as they could. She said she was a little embarrassed about it afterwards because along the way, in her fit of hysteria, she was pushing her friend to the ground. It was kind of like a moment there where it was survival mode at its best. Like she was trying to get there to a faster place, and her friend, I guess, was in the way, and so she kept pushing her friend down. But either way, she looked back, and then that's when she saw the creature was still there. It was actually there in that area, that overgrown area involving the greenery. She noted, though, that the creature was looking at them with an intelligent face. It was looking at them with a form of confusion. Like she expected it to be like growling or being aggressive, but no, instead it was looking at them in a very confused state, almost like they came across it and it came across them just by pure happenchance. The way she stated it was they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and so she saw this creature and it saw her, and then that's when they ran. But she in turn saw it eventually just go back over to the greenery area that went, I guess, blending into the background, and that was it. She never ever saw it again. She says, though, even after 40 years later, she still recalls what it looks like. She said it had amber colored eyes, it had teeth that looked very human-like but were squarish, and then she saw that its hair covered its entire body, and again made it look more on the lines of a primate rather than a human, but it still had all those human-like creatures. There were some portions, though, that she said that she could see through the hair itself, almost towards the skin, but it was still rather thick in certain other areas, and that it was a very darkish brown color. So interesting encounter when it comes to that. Then there was another encounter that was associated with this Woodwose, and this was there in Wales. Some of them involve apparently werewolves as well. Who knows how that gets mixed into this play, but still, and with the Woodwose is this. In 2013, there was an anonymous camper that was outside an area called Dolgellau. If you know where that is, post it in the comments. It's apparently somewhere there in northwestern Wales. Well, she stated that she was there in that location near the river when all of a sudden she got that feeling that she was being watched. And so she couldn't quite shake that feeling. In fact, it was almost happening throughout the entire day. And she knew that something was out there, but I guess couldn't just find it, but she knew that something was looking at her. Then at 4 in the morning, that's when she woke up, because she described as something that was called mournful howling. You've heard those videos, right, on YouTube? They're out there. You can do a search right now and you'll hear people's recordings of Bigfoot-like creatures in the far distance. That spooks the hell out of me, hearing those, because I know what it's like to be in those areas, not necessarily going like Bigfoot hunting, but I know those remote areas, and to hear something like that in the far distance, no, that's a big no-no for me. But in this case, that's what she described as well. She said she never heard anything like it before. She and her family have lived on the countryside for who knows how long. She knows what regular wildlife sounds like, but in this case, it sounded like completely different. And then that's when she said that her and her son were right there as well. They were in that same location. She heard it howl again twice for about 5 seconds, and then she heard another one that sounded further away. Luckily, though, whatever this was that was apparently watching her throughout the day and now making those sounds at night, in some cases really close to her, and in other cases further away, never really showed itself. It apparently just decided that it had had enough, and then that's when it basically left. I mean, she didn't hear it anymore, she didn't see it, but she realized that it could have been something like this along the lines of a Woodwose. And then another encounter actually happened a little bit back. This would have been in 1966 at an area called Place Dol Imoc. Some of you might know where that is, Place de Limoges. This was a situation that occurred to someone that was 13 years old at the time, again, anonymous. They stated that they were there at that location because it was something that allowed disadvantaged kids to experience the wild there and then the countryside. They would do canoeing, rock climbing, and other sorts of things. And in this case, it was called orienteering, which was basically them finding their way through the dark, through the woods in the dark, using a map and then a compass. That could actually be pretty useful when you think about it, because if something like that happens to someone in real life, then they'll have all the knowledge essentially of what to do. So they stated that that very night they were paired up with people, given instructions on how to navigate the woods. They were supposed to go back to an area called the Center, which was a huge manor house, and then that's when they set off. And it didn't take too long. They stated about half an hour or so that they came across a path that would lead to a very steep slope. That's when they stated that something very, very big, very large came crashing through the trees, came crashing through some bushes, and it stepped out right at them, like right in front of them. Him and his partner basically just stopped dead, they said. They stopped at it, looked at it, and it had this almost roaring sensation, but they couldn't see too well because of the nighttime. You could imagine that this creature would have had that blackish hair, and so all they saw was a huge black shadow. But they could tell even in that darkness that it was big and it was fast, and that its overall mass was considered more on the lines of thick and bulky. They in turn dropped everything they had in their possessions. He said that they ran like hell back to the area that they were just from. They alerted all the staff what had happened, and the strange thing was, he said that the staff, instead of thinking that these kids were just exaggerating things or lying, they actually believed them right away. That goes to tell you that the location there is probably prone to more encounters involving the Woodwose. And so they called the police, and then the police showed up. The police also were believing what they were stating. They described the police essentially what it looked like, that at least based on the small bits of information that they could see in the dark, that it was more on the lines of a very giant ape. The police questioned them sympathetically. They did a search. Nothing necessarily was found, but at least in that case, they did have a one-on-one encounter with the Woodwose. So again, that's another very unique situation involving this Bigfoot-like creature there in the England/United Kingdom area. As you can see, though, multiple encounters. And in all the cases, the Woodwose hasn't done anything bad. There was one that it was more on the lines of being confused. There was another one where it was along the lines of it almost being like a peeping Tom of sorts, but then just disappearing. And then another one that, you could call it the most active one, was roaring at the users, but then it in turn did not give chase. It didn't do anything bad or harm them. So it gives you the idea, if you do have an encounter with the Woodwose, at the very least, there should be little danger associated with it. Who knows? There might be other bad encounters that could happen, but at least based on these situations, nothing seems to be dangerous with regards to the creature. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information, at least to showcase here for the Woodwose. If anybody has anything else I might have missed, any other comments, especially on the local level, let me know. Please post those comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.